All right, we have more changes unfolding in presidential politics. Changes that have some astonishing swings in the state of the race. Major movement happening in the polls. We showed you a few videos ago that top pollster, how he was predicting in the next 2 weeks Donald Trump would begin taking a decisive lead in the polls. Well, it appears to be happening. I mean, have you wondered why Kamala's handlers have suddenly stopped hiding her? They've been letting her out of the basement to do interviews, puff piece interviews. Yes, but there's a reason for that. She is losing, flat out losing in their internal polling. She is down, folks. In fact, I'm about to show you polling from a state that nobody even thought Trump would be competitive in, a state that hasn't gone red in decades for a Republican presidential candidate, a state that Trump is now a hair's breadth away from taking the lead in. And if he was to flip this state, it's game over. There would be no path, no possible path to 270 for Kamala Harris. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel. And consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. So it's a recent phenomena that Democratic nominees for president are selected via voting in primaries. That only started in 1968. Voting for your nominee only began in 1968. Prior to that, the party selected the candidate. In smoke-filled back rooms, the kingmakers would choose the best candidate. Most of the time, that meant the person who was bought and paid for, the candidate who would do the bidding of the party bosses. Well, here we are in 2024. We've come full circle, folks, because that's exactly what we have today. Kamala Harris is the first candidate to be selected by the party instead of by voters in over 50 years, chosen via fiat. And it's about to bite them in the ass. Take a look at the state of the race right now. This is the current map to 270. This is what we're dealing with. This is the current state of the race. The yellow states are the toss-ups. These 7 states are what will make or break this election. Now, if you go by Real Clear Politics averages, it turns into this. Arizona leading red, Nevada leaning red, which Trump lost in 2020, Georgia leaning red, which he also lost in 2020, North Carolina leaning red, then the blue wall leaning blue, they say, according to the averages. That gives Harris, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania, they're saying, is too close to call. So you see what's happening, right? Trump would have 268 electoral votes, Kamala 250 electoral votes. But let's give Kamala Pennsylvania. That results in a tie. That's what we're dealing with. This is what you're hearing about on mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC. All of corporate media continues to read these states off the same way I just did to you. It's also why Nebraska, they're saying, is so critical because it has that one electoral vote that could give Kamala 270. Now, we're going to get to Nebraska in a minute. A lot happening there, but what they're not telling you is what the most recent polling shows. They take the averages, these polling outlets, for all the polls for the last year. Well, folks, in politics, all that matters is today. Now, not last week, not last month, sure as shit, not last year, which is why what's happening right now today is so amazing. Trump is pulling ahead bigly in recent polls, even in a state that nobody even imagined he'd be competitive in, the great state of Virginia. Look at this. Multiple new state polls from Virginia have Trump in striking distance. University of Mary Washington just put out a poll yesterday showing Virginia is now virtually deadlocked. Now, I posted this on X yesterday. If you're not already following me there, you should. And someone commented that this is just an outlier, this poll. But it's not. If you look at the recent Virginia polls, Trump's been steadily gaining in Virginia. The last 4 polls, he's been closing the gap there to now being virtually tied with Kamala Harris. Check this out. Trump, Harris virtually deadlocked in surprise battleground state Virginia. New poll, Vice President Harris, former President Trump are virtually deadlocked in Virginia, which has emerged as a surprise battleground state in the 2024 presidential contest. Harris had the support of 47% of Old Dominion voters compared to Trump's 46%, according to a new survey on Friday from the University of Mary Washington. It's only a 1-point spread. That is within the margin of error, folks. And if you look into the poll itself, it's even closer than that. The main pollster who conducted the poll He wrote this: among all survey respondents, the two major party nominees were tied at 44% each. Roughly 5% said they were undecided, with the remainder saying they support a third party or independent candidate or were not planning to vote at all. And he goes on to write how both candidates better start paying much closer attention to Virginia, because he believes it's 100% a swing state this election. So what happens if Trump wins Virginia? What happens if Virginia goes Trump? Well, it's game over. It fundamentally changes the results of this election. And it's not just Virginia, that's the thing. Let's jump back to the map for a minute. Realize Virginia on this map is blue. It wasn't even in the cards for Trump to win. Flipping Virginia would be lights out. There would be no possible path for Kamala Harris. And even with giving her Virginia, plus all of these blue wall states, even giving her Pennsylvania, which Trump leads in, by the way, Pennsylvania is leaning red right now. We were as generous as possible when doing that. And even then, even being this generous, she can't win. She's stuck at 269 electoral votes, which is why what's happening on the ground right now in Nebraska and Georgia is causing the Democrats and their stenographers and corporate media to lose their freaking minds. Check this out.
Trump's state election board voted this week to require ballots to be hand counted in November. It's a move that could drastically lengthen the amount of time needed to tally results in the critical battleground state of Georgia. People have been warning of possible trouble from this panel. Is this the opening salvo of mischief from them in this make or break it state?
I mean, Rev, when I read this news, the first thing that came to my mind was that it just got a whole lot easier for Donald Trump to call an election official in Georgia and ask him to find 11,780 votes like he did after 2020, right? Like, that's what this setup feels like. And the fact that it's happening a month and a half before the election raises a lot of questions about the intention here.
And isn't it funny, by the way, how all of a sudden they're so pissed off about a state changing the rules 6 weeks out from November 5th. Isn't that exactly what happened 4 years ago? Karma's a bitch, isn't it? Look, all Trump needs to do is flip one of these northern states, just one. And folks, that's absolutely in the realm of possibility. Again, all that matters are the recent polls, the newest polls. It's the same likely voters who keep answering these surveys. So let's look. Most recent poll, we have Virginia, Harris up by 2, but we just looked at that. It was much closer. If you dig into it, they're actually tied. Emerson University poll of Wisconsin just released, Trump up by 1. Again, we gave that to Harris, right? This Washington Post poll for Pennsylvania has a tie. Another Emerson poll, Pennsylvania has Trump leading by 1. This Maris poll for Pennsylvania has them both tied. Again, we gave Pennsylvania to Kamala Harris. We gave Wisconsin to Kamala Harris, even though recent polling shows Trump leading. And again, these are the big polling outlets that we're looking at who run these crappy polls where they survey the same group of likely voters over and over again. If you didn't know that, that's how they do this. Most of these outlets use the same group of likely voters. They pick 500 or 1,000 likely voters, hopefully likely voters, and they survey them each week. Normally 1 or 2% of the respondents will change their candidate, so the polls end up fluctuating a tiny bit. It doesn't seem to me like the best way to do this, but what do I know? Now the campaigns, both campaigns, do their own internal polling. They have much more accurate polls, and both campaigns are showing Trump surging, so much so that the Harris campaign made a huge course correction just last week, changing strategy to allow her to leave the basement finally. After weeks of keeping her tucked away, they finally let her out to do multiple interviews. If you watch them, you'll know they were completely softball interviews, yes, pre-planned events with likely vetted questions, but even in that setting, Kamala bombed. You let her go off script, and you end up with something like this. Watch.
We are an optimistic people. We are an optimistic people. Americans, by character, are people who have dreams and ambitions and aspirations. We believe in what is possible. We believe in what can be. And we believe in fighting for that. That's how we came into being, because the people before us understood that one of the greatest expressions for the love of our country, one of the greatest expressions of patriotism, is to fight for the ideals of who we are.
Does anybody have an idea what she's talking about? So they're in a pickle, folks. They don't know what to do. Donald Trump just held a rally yesterday in North Carolina where he reiterated this, explaining after looking at his most recent internal polls, he decided against doing another debate because she's clearly losing. So look, don't fall for corporate media's spin machines. They are trying like hell to suppress the vote by pretending the race is close, thinking if you believe Trump's losing, you'll think it's not even worth going to the polls. Don't fall for it. There is too much on the line this election. Freedom of speech is on the ballot. The economy is on the ballot. In fact, the U.S. economy, folks, is at such a critical point right now with the stock market surging, trading at all-time highs, the NASDAQ up 20% in 2024 and 85% since bottoming in late 2022. Hundreds of stocks are currently trading at all-time highs, which is why in anticipation of a Trump victory and the Fed's rate cuts, which began last Wednesday, I've been trying to track down and find a company in a sector that's been left behind by the Biden-Harris administration and devastated by these ultra-high interest rates. And I believe I have. Today's sponsor, SolarBank, exactly what I've been looking for, trading on the NASDAQ. You can see their ticker symbol on the screen, and for any value investors out there, pay attention to this one. And this video is on purpose because SolarBank just hit an all-time low of $3.50 a share while I'm showing you an analyst report with a price target of $10 a share. That's almost triple the current price. As you're well aware, Trump's chief plan for the economy includes doubling the electrical production of the United States in order to dominate AI in the 21st century. Hands down, the one energy stock which during the upcoming Trump presidency, I believe, could break out is SolarBank. In my experience, it's rare, folks, almost unheard of to find a stellar company with consistent growth that's also trading at such low multiples. And when the market does present you with those opportunities like it is right now, with this company, with SolarBank, I had to bring attention to it because this is a business I just love. Now, a little known secret about this company, about this industry, and their connection to the upcoming Trump presidency, that is, if you believe he's going to win the election, is what he's planning to do once in office. Donald Trump, he just spoke at the Economic Club in New York, one of the most respected economic forums in the world, founded 117 years ago. And at this summit, he laid out his plans to double electricity production in the United States.
Yes, I'm announcing today that under my leadership, the United States will commit to the ambitious goal of slashing energy and electricity prices by half, at least half. We intend to slash prices by half within 12 months at a maximum 18 months. And every single thing that I promised, I produced. Every single thing.
And SolarBank stock is off 50% from its high, set in early 2023. Meanwhile, its revenues are up 300% in the past 2 years. Look, I am sounding the bell on this company. This is almost too good to be true because you see, within each new administration, there are certain companies that benefit more than others, like Tesla, for instance. Why do you think Elon Musk is pushing so hard for a Trump presidency? He knows they'll greenlight all of his projects. Well, likewise, I believe SolarBank is positioned perfectly for the upcoming Trump presidency. To me, my number one energy stock is SolarBank. And before I show you why, realize again, this company trading at its all-time lows right now, around $3.50 a share on the NASDAQ. That's around $100 million market cap, which in my book is insane. Let's look at the math. Here's the financials of the company. Look at the revenue growth from 7 million to 10 million, from 10 to 18, from 18 to $50 million. Now, with revenue growth like this, you expect to see what? A lot of expense growth along with it, right? But you don't. Look at this. In 2022, they booked a loss of $200K. 2023, net income surged 1,100% to $2.2 million. Then this year, 2024, with 9 months of the year in the rearview mirror, net income blasted up to $5.6 million. 254% increase, and the year's not even over. There is a deep decoupling between the underlying business success and the declining share price. Fundamentals are incredible and the stock price isn't following. How long until people realize what's happening here? That's my question. I wanted you to know first, and think about that. A company that can grow its revenue, have a revenue growth rate like this, and be valued at half the PE ratio of your average S&P 500 company. They're forecasting around 9 mil in net income for 2024. That means this company today is trading at a PE ratio of around 9 times earnings. The S&P 500 is trading for a PE ratio of 25. So when I say it's an honor to present SolarBank to you, I mean just that. This is the cheapest price this company's ever traded for in its history on the NASDAQ, $3.50 a share. And where do analysts put this stock? Well, take a look. Research Capital Corporation has a price target at $10 a share. They have a projected return of 69.5%. Again, it's trading for $3.50 a share today. No one in the history of this company has ever been able to buy shares cheaper than one could right now, in this moment. Let that sink in. Now, let me tell you quickly about their business model. Corporations, municipalities, investment funds, family offices, big investment companies who want to build a solar farm contract with SolarBank because they're experts at engineering, constructing, and managing these types of projects. They've been doing it successfully for years. SolarBank has the expertise and the engineers on staff to handle the regulatory framework, the permitting, the grid interconnection, approvals, loan amortization, funding sources, procurement, construction, and the maintenance of the solar farm. That's the important part. And they are racking up projects, folks. Each project can add to the passive income that the company generates with their maintenance contracts. Look at the list of clients they've already partnered with. Honeywell has used them, Panasonic, PNC Bank. It's all about the passive income they generate from these farms. Each project they complete can add to their bottom line. So look, what I'll do, I'll leave a link to SolarBank's website in the description. Make sure to do your own due diligence. I'm only providing some of the information about the company and the industry and my position on it. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.